NBC announced that Caitlin Clark will join their coverage for Sunday Night Basketball beginning this weekend for the Lakers versus the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. This is the WNBA superstar's debut as an NBA analyst, and NBC has absolutely been killing it. First they had MJ, which, by the way, that deal was insane. He got paid $40 million, and I literally think he sat down for an hour. NBC knows how to find the cream of the crop talent, and I just loved what the executive producer for NBC Sports said. This is Sam Flood. He said there's no more iconic figure in basketball in the women's game right now, or the game in general. So we said, let's have a bigger conversation. And it's just so crazy that it feels like every other sport will just come out and say what it is besides the WNBA. The NBA is not scared to acknowledge that there's no more iconic figure in basketball. Not just the women's game, but possibly the game in general than Caitlin Clark. But we would not hear that in the WNBA space. We wouldn't hear that from WNBA media, but the NBA media and the NBA and the league itself is not scared to say it. Like we've seen it when Caitlin does golf events. It just seems like every league but her own is not scared to say the truth. But I do think it's really cool.
The call wasn't supposed to change anything. That's how every seismic moment begins. Quiet, forgettable, harmless. Just another routine booking, just another chair at a desk, just another network segment. But by the end of that night, 3 separate front offices were whispering the same question. How did this happen without us hearing a word? Because when the cameras went live and the broadcast opened, something felt wrong in a way fans could feel in their gut. The desk looked familiar. The lights looked familiar. The NBA highlights rolled like they always do. And then the host turned and said her name. Caitlin Clark. Not as a guest. Not as a headline. Not as the rookie everyone debates online. As an analyst, like she belonged there. Like she had always belonged there. And for a few long seconds, nobody inside league offices said anything, because everyone watching understood the same truth at once. This wasn't a cameo. This was a crossing. She wasn't stepping into the spotlight. She was stepping onto a larger stage. And suddenly, the WNBA didn't feel like the biggest room anymore. Here's what fans never saw. Before the broadcast even began, phones were already buzzing. Group chats exploding. Executives, agents, staffers, PR voices. Is this real? Since when? Who signed off? Because for years, there was an invisible rule.
I'm really excited to be part of the Basketball Night in America crew this season. Carmelo, Vince, and Tracy are legends of the game, and Maria is a true professional. It will be really fun to join them a few times this season. And then from NBC, Caitlin is one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball. We're excited to have Caitlin join Hall of Famers Melo, Vince, Tracy, and Reggie in New York for the launch of Sunday Night Basketball. Sunday Night Basketball being what they're calling the actual games, and another game she'll call is in March, or she'll be a part. She's not calling the game. She'll be a part of the broadcast for is Oklahoma City and the Knicks.
WNBA stars stay in their lane. The NBA stays in theirs. Separate worlds, separate money, separate attention. You don't cross them. Not like this. But nobody ever told Caitlin Clark that rule mattered. Or maybe she heard it and chose to ignore it. While other players were grinding for minutes, chasing endorsements, begging for interviews, she quietly stepped into one of the most watched basketball broadcasts in America and took a seat like it was routine. And that's the part that rattled people. She didn't look nervous. She didn't look misplaced. She looked comfortable. Almost unsettlingly comfortable. Breaking down plays, reading defenses, calling schemes, speaking like a pro, not a rookie, not a guest, but a presence. And that's when the numbers started whispering. Ratings climbed. Clips spread. Her segments flooded timelines. People weren't saying, oh, that's the WNBA player. They were saying, wait, she's actually good at this. And that's when it stopped feeling fun. That's when it started feeling dangerous. Because hype disappears. Skill stays. And if she's elite on the court and commanding on national television, then suddenly the league is facing a very different problem.
Why is Caitlin Clark not signed to Clutch? I feel like if Caitlin Clark was signed to Clutch Sports, which, by the way, is LeBron James agency. Rich Paul works there. They have a lot of power in the NBA space. Like, if Caitlin Clark was signed to Clutch, I feel like this CBA would have been done by now. And I don't know, maybe I'm speculating here, but if you see your client who is this massive superstar, like, a deal has to get done. I feel like where is Rich Paul? Where is LeBron? LeBron's a huge fan of Caitlin Clark. I feel like he would like Caitlin to be signed with Clutch. And they do have A'ja Wilson. Maybe Rich Paul can step in and have Asia's back and get this thing done. Everybody loses if there is not a WNBA season next year. Like, yes, they are still mega superstars and they will still be able to do commercials and all of these things. But I wish that she was kind of with a dog agent like Clutch, somebody who just goes to war for their clients. And I feel like that would have been a perfect pairing. I also think that the Nike deal, like, there's no way Clutch would have just signed off on a $24 million 8-year deal with Nike for a player like Caitlin Clark. I feel like there's just no way. So I don't know what happened. I don't know if she signed with her agent early on, but can we start a petition to get her to Clutch? Because I feel like some things would be moved along.
You have a presence. You have pull. And pull is something leagues never fully command. Inside WNBA offices, insiders say the energy flipped almost instantly. Not excitement, not pride. Anxiety. Real anxiety. Because think about it. For decades, the league has tried to manufacture stars carefully, patiently, safely, one rollout at a time. But Caitlin didn't wait her turn. She didn't wait for approval. She didn't wait for a strategy meeting. She didn't wait for the league to lift her up. She lifted herself. And she did it on someone else's stage. That's what cut deepest. Because when a player grows beyond your system, the spotlight stops being yours. And control is everything. Veterans felt it first. Reporters stopped asking about last night's game. They started asking about her. Did you see Clark on NBC? What do you think about her doing NBA coverage? Is she becoming the face of basketball? Imagine grinding for 10 years, empty arenas, red-eye flights, small checks, building the league piece by piece, and then a 22-year-old arrives and suddenly she's on national television before you even land a sneaker deal. That doesn't feel motivating. That feels threatening. And nobody likes feeling replaceable. So the whispers began.
That Clark, the Indiana Fever star with an enormous following within the game, is joining the network's pregame coverage for its debut of Sunday Night Basketball this weekend when the Los Angeles Lakers play the New York Knicks at Madison Square Garden. The debut.
But whispers like that don't come
They
from
picked
nowhere.
her to kick it off.
Fear.
Nah, yeah, he'll do a couple weeks and then he'll come in. No.
Games she played and sold out quicker.
We need you to launch this thing,
prices
dude.
jumped. Social feeds
We need you
crazy.
to kick
And now
this
even
off.
networks
See?
outside the league wanted her voice.
And if you
Not
remember,
the league's version of her.
Peacock,
That's when the
NBC
balance
Universal.
shifts. Suddenly the question isn't how she helps grow the league. It's what happens if she doesn't need it. That thought scares any organization. Because once one player becomes bigger than the logo, control starts slipping. And then something happened nobody saw coming. Other players started supporting her. Not on camera at first, but quietly, through texts, through locker room conversations. Then it went public. Sophie Cunningham didn't criticize. Didn't sneak a shot. Didn't say stay in your place. She praised her. Said she earned it. Said it was good for women's basketball. And somehow that landed harder than any criticism ever could. Because when even competitors admit you're different, the debate is finished. And suddenly, it wasn't hype anymore.
No more iconic figure in basketball, in women's game right now, or the game in general, about Caitlin Clark. In the game in general, lads, all I gotta say is that that is not something that the WNBA would be happy with. We saw it. The WNBPA said that Alyssa Thomas was the reason why people are watching. And by the way, it's not even, people are like, oh, it was the finals about Alyssa Thomas. No. They literally said it wasn't just the playoffs, but our regular season broke records as fans went to watch Alyssa Thomas. Like, that is a statement. That is a statement the WNBPA had put out. I have to say that is a statement that they had put out to say that fans came to watch Alyssa Thomas instead of Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese. Even if you wanted to say Angel Reese, it is what it is. I think you're allowed to say Paige Beckers if you are because I'm pretty sure
It wasn't hype anymore. It was reality. And now the league couldn't minimize it. They couldn't label it a moment or wait for it to pass, because even rivals were saying the same thing. She's changing everything. That's when executives started asking the questions nobody wanted to ask out loud. What happens when networks call her directly instead of going through us? What happens when sponsors follow her name instead of the team logo? What happens when kids tune in for her, not the league? Because loyalty to a league is fragile. Loyalty to a star is powerful. History proves that every single time. And Caitlin Clark was becoming that kind of star. The kind you can't design. The kind you can't plan. The kind that just takes over. Meanwhile, the broadcasts kept rolling. Every week she looked more confident, more relaxed, more natural, like she'd always been there. Fans loved it. They didn't see lines. They didn't see politics. They just saw talent. But behind closed doors, lines were everything. Because once one player crosses over like this, others start wondering, if she can do it, why can't I? And that's how systems crack. One person stops asking permission. Then others follow. Suddenly, the league isn't the gatekeeper anymore. It's just another option. And insiders say that's what scared them most. Not that she was winning, but that she was winning without them. She didn't wait for approval. She didn't wait for a rollout. She didn't wait for validation. NBC validated her. The NBA audience validated her. Millions validated her. And once validation hits that level, you stop feeling small. You stop feeling dependent. You realize something dangerous. You have leverage. And leverage changes everything. Because now when contracts surface, when negotiations begin, when media deals come up, she isn't asking. She's choosing. That's a different kind of power. And organizations hate when players have options. So the room tightened, smiles stiffened, praise sounded hollow. Because deep down, everyone knew what they just witnessed. This wasn't a player joining a show. This was the moment someone stepped out of the league's shadow and created her own. And once that shadow grows larger than the league itself, there's no turning back. Now every move feels heavier, every deal louder, every appearance like a message. Not just about her. About the future, because maybe this was never just Caitlin Clark's story. Maybe this is the opening of something much bigger. A shift where players aren't boxed in, where talent isn't contained, where the spotlight isn't controlled by one league office anymore. Maybe this was the moment the walls quietly cracked. And maybe that's why the silence inside those offices felt so heavy, because nobody wanted to say it out loud, but everyone was thinking the same thing. If one NBC contract caused this much panic, what happens when the next opportunity shows up? What happens when the next door swings open? What happens when she gets even bigger? Because right now, she isn't chasing attention. Attention is chasing her. And when that happens, you're not just a player anymore. You're not just a rookie. You're not just a storyline. You become a force. And forces don't ask for permission. They reshape everything in their path. Which means this probably isn't the peak. This feels like the beginning. And if the league already feels uneasy now, they're really not prepared for what comes next. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just join NBC. She crossed a line no one else was willing to cross. And the most unsettling part, she made it look effortless, like it was inevitable, like this outcome was always coming, like the system was never built big enough to contain her. And once fans see that, once players see that, once networks understand there's no stuffing the genie back in the bottle, control disappears, the walls collapse, and for the first time, it doesn't feel like the league is shaping the future of women's basketball. It feels like she is.